Good evening. You're watching ARIRANG News at 8. It's Thursday, January 23rd here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Ji Myung-kil. We begin this evening with the aftermath of Korea's worst ever personal data breach. The heads of the nation's financial regulators outlined their plans for handling the crisis to quell rising public concerns that stolen information may have fallen into the wrong hands. Ji Myung-kil has our top story.
With the country still in shock after the personal information of some 20 million clients was stolen from local banks and credit card firms in Korea, the heads of the country's financial watchdogs appeared before a parliamentary policy committee on this Thursday to present their plans for addressing the data breach. Choi Soo-hyun, the governor of the Financial Supervisory Service, said more than 2 million cardholders have canceled their credit cards or applied for new ones since Monday. He also said some 25 million people, equivalent to 28% of the country's economically active population, have logged on to the websites of the three card firms, KB국민, NH-농협, and Lotte, to check whether their personal information had been breached.
The three card firms are currently running a joint 24-hour hotline in conjunction with the Financial Supervisory Service. For now, there haven't been any additional secondary damages.
Shin Jae-yoon, the chairman of the Financial Services Commission, said the regulator will strengthen monitoring of staff at financial firms who deal with data protection and their contractors, enhance regulations on the sharing of customer information between affiliates, and consider whether top executives at financial firms should face suspension or dismissal.
We are coming up with measures to levy fines of up to 1% of the revenue of financial institutions if they use customer data to sell their financial products.
In addition, a task force headed by the FSC vice chairman is planning to demand each financial institution submit customer data protection plans by the end of January. The task force will announce its own customer protection plan next month, and the FSC said it will submit revisions to various Consumer Financial Protection Acts to the National Assembly later in the month. Ji Myung-kil, ARIRANG News.
President Park Geun-hye returned home Thursday from a 9-day trip that took her to India and Switzerland. Her presidential office correspondent Oh Jin-ju has some of the highlights of the Korean leader's overseas visit.
President Park's 9-day trip to India and Switzerland was focused on making it easier for Korean firms to enter overseas markets, calling for more investment in Korea, and seeking cooperation in the creative economy sector. Korea and India decided to upgrade their Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or CEPA, in the near future by raising the trade liberalization level, which is under the current pact at 75%, 15% lower than the CEPA between India and Japan. President Park and Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh also agreed to revise the tax treaty between the two nations to prevent double taxation.
양국 간의 투자 확대 및 영업 환경 개선에 중요한 토대를 마련한 것을 의미 있게 생각합니다.
President Park was also able to secure promises from the Indian government to resolve the obstacles that have been blocking progress in POSCO's stalled project to build a steel mill in the Indian state of Odisha for roughly 9 years now. In Switzerland, President Park and her Swiss counterpart Didier Burkhalter vowed to work together to realize a creative economy through technological cooperation and by fostering specialized personnel.
스위스는 세계적인 기초과학 강국이고 또 한국은 IT와 응용 기술이 발달한 나라라서 양국의 협력이 서로에게 큰 도움이 될 거라고 생각합니다.
The president visited one of the vocational schools in Bern to benchmark the systematic vocational training system of Switzerland.
열정을 가지고 행복하게 공부하는 것이 학생도 행복하고 또 그 공부도 창의적으로 잘 될 뿐 아니라.
She also attended this year's World Economic Forum in Davos and called on the world's business leaders to look for investment opportunities in Korea's creative economy. During an opening speech at the first session of the global event, President Park emphasized that the creative economy will lay a path to overcoming 3 major challenges facing the world: low growth, high unemployment, and income disparities.
Through startups, as well as the innovation of existing businesses, a creative economy can generate new engines of growth and can grow jobs. There will also be less income inequality, since anyone with a great idea can live out one's dreams by starting a business.
Addressing concerns about the cost of reunification, an issue that keeps foreign investors from pouring money into South Korea, President Park said reunification would be a jackpot not only for the two Koreas but also for neighboring countries. Oh Jin-soo, ARIRANG News.
Now, speaking of coming home, a Korean trade official who was kidnapped by Libyan gunmen earlier this week was rescued unharmed on Thursday after Libyan forces arrested the kidnappers. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Hwang Sung-hee has this report.
3 days after he was kidnapped, Korean trade official Han Seo-gu was safely rescued with the help of the Libyan government. Korea's foreign ministry said Thursday that Han, the head of the Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency's unit in Libya, is in good health and has been handed over to the Korean embassy in Tripoli.
Han was safely freed by the Libyan government at around midnight Thursday, Korea time. Han was safely freed by the Libyan government at around midnight Thursday, Korea time, and the Korean embassy received him at around 4 a.m. No health problems have been detected.
The rescue operation was led by Libyan security forces, and they have arrested 4 kidnappers who are reportedly part of a small militia. The identity and motive of the kidnappers remain a mystery, and while there were reports that they asked for as much as $2 million, the foreign ministry says no ransom money was handed over.
Throughout the process of Han's rescue operation, the Korean government followed its principle of not paying ransom to kidnappers.
After being interviewed by the embassy about his abduction, Han is expected to travel to the Mediterranean island of Malta, where he will meet up with his family before later returning to Korea. Whether Han returns to his post in Libya is undecided for now, but Kotra says the decision is solely up to him. Libya has struggled with violence and unrest in recent years following the ouster and death of dictator Muammar Gaddafi, and there are nearly 2,000 such armed militias operating across the country, with foreigners often targeted for abductions. As this was the first time a Korean was kidnapped in Libya, Seoul's foreign ministry says it will thoroughly review the case to prevent similar incidents from happening again in the future. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
Meanwhile, South Korea's top security officials came together on Thursday to discuss North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's recent inspections of strategic military units. A weekly security meeting held at the presidential office of Cheongwade was attended by Defense Minister Kim Gun-jin and Intelligence Chief Nam Jae-jun. On the same day, North Korean state media reported that a young dictator had observed a training exercise of Unit 323, known to be a special Air Force unit. Although the report did not mention when he made the trip, Kim visited the same unit following the nation's third nuclear test last February. Now, North Korea has been churning out a series of conciliatory gestures towards the South in recent weeks, yet it has yet to be seen whether the latest peace overtures are a sincere one. This considering Pyongyang's track record in which it carries out sudden military provocations soon after it wages peace offensives. For an expert's take on North Korea's latest moves, we go one-on-one with Dr. Kim Chol-woo, research fellow at Korea Institute for Defense Analyses. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be here.
So how sincere do you think North Korea is this time around?
We cannot measure the sincerity level of this North Korean Kim Jong-un regime. But look at the experience of the Korean War in 1950. They did a barrage of peace overtures toward the South Korea and international community. Since then, on and off, they've done so much thing. But particularly this year, Kim Jong-un started a New Year's message with a very peace-oriented, very rhetorically, sophisticated way of overtures. Particularly, they even tried to, take a first step to prove their sincerity with the practical behavior. But unfortunately, all we can see up to now is the practical behavior was the paratroopers' nighttime infiltration training. Particularly North Korea's Special Operation Forces infiltration, particularly nighttime operations, is a very scary threat to South Korea. On top of that, they exposed the training site, nighttime, guidance by Kim Jong-un, to the South Korea. So focal point is not the peace offensive. My understanding is their focal point is the Republic of Korea and US's joint military drills, which will upcoming to the late February and April. They try to make a spotlight on the joint military drills. It's annual defense drills, but they try to ratchet up the threats by the North Korea, the international community, particularly the United States, because they try to stay off internal vulnerability, particularly right after the Jang Sung-taek's execution and international isolation and so and so. So North Korea wants to make their version of breakthrough, not the jackpot, the breakthrough to stave off their very dire situation at this moment.
So how likely is that we'll see some sort of a military provocation?
It depends on the ROK-US combined response to North Koreans' provocative actions. Particularly, yes, it can escalate to a certain level, but as long as we keep the airtight security, robust defense posture, they would not dare to the daytime provocations or attack like a Yeonpyeongdo style. North Koreans are not dumb guys. They have their own strategy. So probably nighttime operations or the very blurring, kind of provocations regarding who initiated the provocations, like subway terrorist attacks or cyber attacks, or the special operation forces, infiltration operations. Those kind of scenarios. But the Park Geun-hye administration's defense posture is not the traditional way of the former governments. They try to analyze real intention or their kind of premeditated operations mode. We are closely watching over that. Particularly NIS, National Intelligence Services, analysis power is increasing because of the outpouring of the information intelligence through the North Korean version of mobile phones or telecommunication situations. So the analysis function here in South Korean side is leveled up. So there's no way of old style, saber rattling is not working anymore.
Well, South Korea appears to be hardening its stance against North Korea, remaining resistant to the peace offensive. Do you see this as a best way of dealing with North Korea?
It depends on the what the following measures will come up. So if this kind of a strategic maneuver, like a NSC meeting or strategic setting up to send the message toward North Korea, okay, we are ready, whatever you are trying to do to South, and then it will be successful. But anyhow, we strategically need some kind of triggering action by whatever side. It could be arguably the best way is the resume the family union, gathering based on humanitarian basis. But sometimes we need some giving them some breathing room to ease down their military ratcheting up the military tension.
What sort of wiggle room are we talking about here?
Because of the whenever North Koreans proposing new set of proposals, depending on the near closing to the joint military drills, case by case, step by step response. It could seemingly be a ping pong style rhetorical stuff, but we need some edge. And then we can give some kind of saving face and strategy signal to North Korea. Because of that, they can have a second thought about their traditional way of blackmailing is not working anymore.
All right. Dr. Kim, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
That very visit.
Touch base with journalists, experts, and analysts who are taking the pulse of Asia's heartbeat. South Korea's defense minister.
In a lively half hour, join ARIRANG's Yoo Ji-hye for the day's top stories, current affairs, business, technology trends, plus global weather forecasts and more. ARIRANG News. Every weeknight, live on ARIRANG TV.
Now, turning to the bird flu crisis here in Korea, officials have confirmed that the dead ducks found in a river in central Korea have been infected by the latest strain of avian influenza. This latest case confirms that the virus seems to be spreading. Connie Lee reports.
These dead ducks are the latest victims of the avian influenza outbreak. Officials have confirmed that the dead ducks found in Kumgang River in central Korea were infected with the highly pathogenic H5N8 strain of the bird flu. This is the first case in which avian influenza has spread to other regions in the country. The dead ducks were found about 50 kilometers north of Gocheongun County, or the area where the bird flu outbreak first started. Officials say a group of about 70,000 wild ducks migrated to the river in Secheongun County to look for food. The latest development is now prompting local officials to step up their quarantine measures.
To make sure the virus does not spread, our county is going all out on disinfection procedures.
More ducks are now expected to be slaughtered in the area. In the meantime, Korea's Financial Supervisory Service, along with the Credit Finance Association, have asked different financial firms to help the farmers who have been affected by the outbreak. Assistance such as loans and emergency funds are being prepared for the farmers. So far, the bird flu has been confirmed at a total of 8 farms, all in southern Korea. Some 300,000 ducks and chickens have been culled since the bird flu outbreak first started late last week. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
The Korean economy appears to be moving into a phase of stable recovery. The central bank says the private sector is waking up from years of slumber to drive growth, although a major government spending cut forced a slightly lower growth rate in October to December period. ARIRANG's Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
There are signs that domestic demand is picking up steam and growth in the coming months is expected to be more balanced between exports and domestic activities. The Bank of Korea said Thursday that the economy grew 0.9% in the fourth quarter of last year from the previous quarter. That's down slightly from a 1.1% gain in the July to September period, but it was largely because of a major cutback in fiscal spending prompted by lower than expected tax revenues toward the end of the year.
National tax revenue dropped last year by 1.1 trillion won, or roughly $1 billion from 2012. And that resulted in a drop in government spending. This was the major factor behind the slower growth in the fourth quarter.
The central bank added that the fourth quarter growth was spurred by rising domestic demand. It also confirmed that the economy grew 2.8% for all of 2013 from the previous year, as earlier projected. That compares with 2% growth in 2012 and represented a reversal of a 2-year slowdown. Concerns remain, however, about the nation's household debt and employment.
The snowballing household debt problem, the rise in the number of jobs concentrated on those in their 50s, and low-quality jobs will put a strain on a further boost in domestic demand.
The central bank said that the Korean economy will likely continue its recovery and forecast a growth of 3.8% for 2014 and 4% for 2015. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
The government has unveiled plans to attract more experts and students from other countries to the nation. Under the new plan, the government aims to gradually increase the number of so-called talented foreigners it invites from overseas by nearly 50%, from about 25,000 in 2012 to 37,000 in 2017. To do that, a research fellowship program is set to be launched that will grant scholarships and financial support to those willing to work with local businesses and institutes. And to encourage long-term commitments of visiting experts or students, the government plans to extend the terms of F2 visas from 3 years to 5. The U.S. government is calling on Korea and Japan to come to an agreement on how the body of water between the two countries should be identified. U.S. State Department Deputy Spokesperson Mary Harf said in a press briefing Wednesday that Washington will continue to use the name Sea of Japan to refer to the body of water in line with the U.S. Board on Geographic Names. She rejected the idea of using both EC and Sea of Japan, saying it is a long-standing U.S. policy to use only one name for the sake of clarity. Korea considers the name Sea of Japan a legacy of Japan's imperial past, as it came into use during Japan's colonial rule of Korea in the early 20th century. Now, the long wait is over for Korean athletes wanting a crack at Olympic gold. With just over 2 weeks to go before the Winter Games in Sochi, the Korean team has finalized its roster. ARIRANG News' Hong Ji-sun reports.
Their moment has arrived. Wearing the Team Korea uniform with the national flag patched on is the ultimate goal and ultimate honor for any Korean athlete. And during the upcoming Winter Olympics, the highest number of Korean athletes ever will get to wear them. With a handful of returning champions, like figure skating legend Kim Yeon-na, and new medal hopefuls, Team Korea is aiming for a top 10 finish for the third consecutive Winter Games.
We are sending the biggest squad ever of 64 athletes, up 40% from the Vancouver Olympic Games. Korea's strength used to be confined to skating, but now we are sending athletes in almost all sports to the Winter Games. That makes the outlook for Sochi and Pyeongchang even brighter.
These young athletes are shooting for the finals in Sochi and a place on the podium in Pyeongchang.
I'm thrilled about my first Olympics, and I hope Sochi is a stepping stone for me to stand on the podium in Pyeongchang 2018.
Technically, we're not short of the world's top snowboarders. It's just a matter of linking each trick smoothly on the half pipe at the Games.
Korea is taking more athletes to Sochi than it has to any other Winter Olympic Games. Will Team Korea also bring home the most medals? The squad will fly to Russia next Saturday after spending Lunar New Year's at home. Choi Soo-hyun, ARIRANG News.
Let's go over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center for a checkup. Now, Bo-kyung, it was a warm winter day here in the capital. How about other regions?
Well, Tia, it was the same throughout the country. In fact, temperatures jumped to 8 degrees Celsius in some parts of the southern regions. Taking a look at the current conditions, the central regions are at the edge of a high-pressure system from the South Sea, which is why we're seeing light clouds there. Well, as temperatures rise, there is a possibility that fine dust may come back, so please continue to be on the watch. Other than that, a dry weather warning has been issued in the southeastern coastal regions, so please continue to watch out for any forest fires. And for those of you making plans for the weekend, keep in mind that nationwide showers are forecast for Saturday. Taking a look at tomorrow's readings, Seoul will start off the day at 0 degrees with a high of 8, while cities down south hit the low teens. Moving on to other regions, Jeju makes it to 15 degrees, while Dokdo and Mount Kumgang top out at 10 and -1 degrees respectively. Well, that's all I have for you this hour, and let's take a look at the international weather.
that's a broadcast on this Thursday evening. I'm Yoo Ji-hye in Seoul. Thanks for watching.